Welcome to the Howell Business Beat, where we delve deep into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship, innovation, workforce, talent, economic development, and more, bringing you the latest insights and strategies to thrive in today's competitive business landscape. I'm Janelle Smith, president of the Howell Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Dianne Samples.
Well, thank you. I'm excited for today's episode.
Yes, and we are joined by our special guest. We have the pleasure today of talking with Eileen Zilch with Community Catalyst. She's the executive director there. So welcome, Eileen. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Janelle and Dianne.
So if you could give a little bit of background information on yourself and who you are as we kick off today's episode.
I feel like nobody ever wants to know who I am.
I always do.
About our organization.
We love to hear about who you are.
Yes.
Okay, so I am a mom of 4 and officially this year an empty nester, which is weird after being a mom for 32 years now to have no kids at home. So that's very strange. I love to watercolor paint, have been taking lessons over the last couple of years for that. I love to hike. I love to travel. So that's a little bit about me. And I live in Howell and have lived in Howell for since 2010, 2008, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm a native from Pennsylvania, from the city of Pittsburgh, so not a native Michigander. But I love this state and I love the summer, and we're coming up on my favorite season. So
when did you move here?
1988, so don't age me.
I know exactly how old you are, or how long ago that was, because that's how old I am.
That's the year she was born. Yeah. I know. I have to do that every day to her. Stop.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, so I got my MBA. Moved to Michigan to work for Ford.
Oh, fantastic. Well, We are lucky to have you here in Howell because you bring to us a wonderful organization based in Howell, Community Catalyst. So now I'd love to transition and just have you share a little bit about Community Catalyst and what you guys do.
Yeah. So we are a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit. We focus on developing housing that people can afford and also partner with other organizations in the community to do both housing and services, because typically when people need housing that they can afford, they may need some help with other things as well.
Like what? Could you be a little more?
Sure. So I'll give you some specific case examples. We just finished a project last year called Bethel Suites, and Bethel Suites is a conversion of a motel, the old Crest Motel. And the folks that come and stay with us have usually encountered some life speed bump. So some of the folks that have stayed with us over the last year, single moms going through really hard divorces. And so they and their kids stay with us for a period of time while they stabilize. We currently have 2 stage 4 cancer patients, both women who are in their mid-60s who were diagnosed with cancer and lost their housing as a result of their illness and inability to work. So some really hard, significant speed bumps. And when people need housing, they usually need food. They usually need other community services, sometimes counseling because they're going through a really significant life event, and we're able to plug them into the community resources that they need to help them. We provide the housing. We're actually at Bethel Suites. We've developed a whole food program together with community partners to be able to feed people on a daily basis. So we're able to help people stabilize and then thrive.
So I feel like what you did with Bethel Suites was just fascinating and a phenomenal thing for our community. And to see that whole project come to fruition. And it's been, I don't think it's been quite a year, has it?
So next week, it will be a year since we served our first guest, but that was literally, we were not anticipating serving people at the end of April. We had the Let's bus drop people off in our parking lot that needed help. And so we literally, Saturday afternoon, I was getting calls from the construction workers. There are people here that need help and need housing. So we went out and figured out a way to get them into a room. We had just received certificate of occupancy on half of the rooms. They weren't even furnished, but we scrambled to get furniture in. And so it is almost a year since we housed our first person at Bethel Suites. So the need is crazy.
The need is crazy. So I was just going to say, could you just give a quick summary or recap over the last year and what you've seen, how many people you've been able to serve?
Yep. So I don't have our stats for this year, but I did a year-end report. So we served 45 individuals or families in the 7 months that we were open in 2023. And 10 of those we were able to help to successfully transition into permanent affordable housing, which is a huge undertaking because there is so little housing that people can afford in our county and pretty much everywhere. But again, it's when folks come to us, it's almost like trauma. And it probably isn't almost, it probably really is trauma.
Absolutely.
Right. And they have so many things happening in their lives that just to give them a place to sleep and a calm, safe place to live in, it's like it takes a couple weeks just to kind of de-stress and be able to figure out, okay, so now what do I do next? And so we're helping them, partnering them with the community resources that they need to, I mean, some folks come, they've lost their driver's license, like literally lost it. It's somewhere, but they don't know where it is. So they have to go apply and get a new driver's license, and just basic things that you take for granted that when you're so traumatized like that, you just need help with so many different things.
Right. And then there's all the other things too, like of trying to get support, like do they have a cell phone? I mean, if you don't have a cell phone, you almost can't do anything. And then if you don't have a way to charge that cell phone, you might as well not have a cell phone. And then how do you get transportation? So all of these hurdles and barriers for individuals to overcome that are related to housing.
Exactly. Yep.
And I remember you sharing a story about, they form their own community, which I think is so important in that, like you said, in that kind of that de-stressing and just being able to heal from whatever they are going through and find that strength to move forward. Like they did community meals in the kitchens there. And they become their own little community where they support each other and they can help each other.
Exactly. And we have many, many, many community partners, including several churches who will come on site, meet with our guests one-on-one, or one of our church partners comes starting in the late spring through early fall. And every week on Tuesday, they come and do a barbecue at our pergola for the guests. They love that. It's an opportunity to gather with everyone, sit outside, have a picnic, have fun food that you have, outdoors when you're having a barbecue. And they build relationships with each other, but then they also build relationships with mentors and people who genuinely care about seeing them do better and want to help them. We've had people literally donate a vehicle to our guests because they had no transportation and they had a job and they were struggling to be able to get back and forth to work. So it is truly the community helping other less fortunate community members, helping to get them back on their feet and then in a place where they can thrive. It's amazing. It has been life-changing, not just for the people that stay with us, but for us to be a part of that and to be able to love on people that way.
It's amazing. You're doing some really incredible work. And like I said, we're so grateful to have you here, Community Catalyst here, making some real positive change. And I want to talk a little bit about affordable and attainable housing and the difference of the two and what that looks like in Livingston County and what is happening as far as housing and that grassroots kind of more put it back on the community to support. So if you want to take it away from there, I know it's...
I'd love to. Yeah, definitely one of our passions, kind of organizational passions, helping people with housing that they can afford. And so you use two words, affordable and attainable. And I use both of them, but I typically am careful about talking about affordable housing because it has such a negative connotation. So we say either attainable or housing that people can afford because we don't want people to think negatively. Because in Livingston County, that kind of category of affordable housing is people who make $50,000 a year or less. And so those are people with jobs, typically people who are working as teachers or in the restaurant or firefighters or people who are serving us every day. And it's funny when I say it in the nonprofit community, everybody sits there and shakes their head and said, yeah, that's me too. So people who are
doing
us.
good things.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And contributing to our community in a very positive way, but they maybe only have one income. They don't have dual incomes.
Exactly.
Well, or like you said, I mean, life happens and illness happens. Things happen unexpectedly that nobody can plan for.
Right.
And I mean, it only takes one, catastrophic event to knock anybody, off of their balance. And
Exactly.
we're all a step away from that. So it's really important to make that distinction.
Yep. So we are helping people with housing that they can afford. And we last year started an initiative called Housing Catalysts. And that initiative very specifically is working to both develop and implement a work plan that will yield over the next 5 to 7 years more housing in Livingston County that people can afford. And you talked about a grassroots initiative, Janelle. That's exactly what this is. This is the community coming together as a community to fix a problem in our community. So while our organization is the lead organizations, it's not just us working on this. And I know you know that very well because you're one of the leaders of the initiative. So we have not just our organization, we have you as one of the leaders. And I wrote this down to make sure I gave everybody credit. Marcia Gaborowski with Ann Arbor Spark. Adam Perry, who's the executive director of Livingston County Catholic Charities. Brad Mashad, who has 2 jobs. He's the CFO of OLSA, Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency, and then he's the CFO of OLSA and the CEO of OLSA's housing development arm called Venture. And then Amy Johnston, who works for Community Mental Health, and then she also helps to lead many of the initiatives in the community, including the Homeless Continuum of Care, the Hunger Council, so people serving type initiatives. So the 6 of us are actually the leaders of the initiative, and we've formed 6 work groups as well. And we, in the short time that the initiative has been up and running, which is 7 months, we are already starting to see some really significant fruit from the initiative, which is super exciting. And the fact that we have such a diverse group of people who are part of the initiative, so we have business leaders, we have nonprofit leaders, we have some representatives from government, we have people who are part of the planning and zoning for their community. Just a diverse body. Finance, funders, philanthropy, employers. We have so many people who are coming together, and we meet quarterly, and we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or so people at each quarterly session that we do. And then in between, the work groups are working to advance their initiatives. And as I said, we're already starting to see fruit, which is super exciting.
It is. It is very exciting. It's a huge goal to achieve,
Yes.
to bring this. But I think one of the things that's really reassuring is looking at our county and the understanding that there's a need. I think that there's a lot of awareness, at least within our grassroots movement, and everybody's on board and understanding that. And then also looking to some different models of where this has been done really well.
Right.
So we know it is obtainable, right? We know that we can get there. It's an achievable goal. So I think really leveraging some of the creative concepts that we've seen across the state, or and bringing that and seeing what things that we can apply right here in our community is really encouraging as well.
Agree. So we had first or second session, we had someone from the city of Jackson come in and talk to us about the initiatives that they're employing in the city of Jackson. And then in our May meeting, We have someone from Kalamazoo who's going to be coming in and in a similar vein talking about what they are already doing. And theirs was a grassroots initiative as well. And so the gal that kicked off the initiative is going to be coming and talking to us. And every community is different. So it's not a one size fits all by any stretch, but it shows you the power of one person. So each of us have a role that we can play. And so when there's 50 people in a room, if each person can do something, look at what these other communities are doing, we're going to be able to do it too. It's not going to look exactly the same as Jackson or Kalamazoo. It's going to look like what we need here in Livingston County.
Right. And you talked a little bit about housing here in Livingston and what kind of salary would be needed to really have an affordable home or attainable home here, housing in Livingston. What is, there were some other figures that you shared with us too that I found really interesting that were the ALICE data. And I don't know if you'll have these off the top of your head, but one of the figures that I found really interesting, and I don't know the exact figures either is the cost of housing, even in the just like the past 4 or 5 years, how much it's increased. And then looking at that in comparison to the wages and how much have wages increased. And it's very easy to comprehend at that point that, and looking at that data that, wow, who could afford this, right?
Exactly. And none of the data really are unique to Livingston County.
Right.
Just across the country, housing prices have increased exponentially, and wages just aren't able to keep up. So in our county, the unique situation is that we have one of the highest area median incomes. Usually it's always a point in time thing. But for the last couple of years, Livingston County has had the highest area median income of any county in the state of Michigan. So if you're a housing developer, you're going to develop the housing that suits that community. So when you have a high income community, what kind of housing do you get? Housing for a high income community. So if you're not one of those high wage earners, there's not enough housing being developed to keep up with the need. So as a result, in Livingston County, we have so many folks that work in the county that can't afford to live here. So they can't live where they work, which isn't a sustainable way to live.
It isn't. And then when you talk about that too, from the employer perspective, right? And they have a vested interest in this because this is their workforce. This is the future of their business. And I think that this is a great opportunity for employers to engage and help be a part of solving this problem and this issue. Right. And we're leading the business group of this, and we do have a survey out there that's circulating. So anybody listening, I'll give a small plug for that because we're looking for additional feedback and also just getting involved and getting engaged and becoming part of the solution.
Right. Well, and I think too, those figures, because it's very well known that Livingston County is a very affluent county, and that masks the need because people don't step back and realize that that's a certain percentage of the county. And then also coming from a finance and a mortgage background years ago in the banking sector, I mean, the policy reform on the finance side isn't keeping up with the change in the demographic either. I mean, there has to be change on being able to finance a house and giving people that opportunity, with creating new programs that offers them the opportunity to get into a house with a lower income.
100%. And that's, so I'm jumping ahead of
and I probably took you ahead of where this is where my mind always goes.
It's a great segue.
It jumps ahead to some of the initiatives that we're working on right now. One of the groups of people that we know can't afford to live in our county are my kids coming out of college cannot afford to live in our county. And that none of my kids live in Livingston County because they can't afford to. And I have 4 kids. And that just breaks my heart. So if we want our young people to be able to live here, we have to do something different. In addition, some of the folks that fall into that $50,000 a year or less, If they hit any kind of a life speed bump, like the folks that we're serving at Bethel Suites, oftentimes then their job is disrupted, which usually means they struggle to pay bills, which usually means that their credit's impaired. And so, was it their fault that they got sick, or was it their fault that they're, going through an awful divorce, or whatever their life circumstances? We do need to figure out ways to help folks. And so renting is certainly an option. But if you want folks to be able to buy a home, again, coming up with different alternatives. And so one of the things that we're exploring is a rent to own program where people make a payment that they can afford, and part of that payment, part of that payment is money that every month we would put away for them, so that by making a steady monthly payment that they can afford, we're able to help them save basically for a down payment. And then at that same time, if their credit's impaired, they go through credit recovery. We put them on that trajectory. We connect them with some homeowner down payment assistance programs. And by the time they've walked a couple years down the path, they're, without a ton of work, they're now in a place to be able to afford a home that they're already living in, they're already invested in, and they can convert then from a renter to an owner. Isn't that an awesome way to help people?
Amazing program.
Yeah. Well, so you also tied it back to like workforce development, and it goes and talking about the generation that's coming up, our kids. I mean, they're coming out too with that student debt, and that cripples them when it comes to finance. I mean, having that debt burden walking into trying to save for a down payment. And that's where it's so important with all of the other community partners, trying to realize that there's other trajectories, maybe than going that 4-year traditional college route where you're incurring all of that debt.
Right. And then keeping in mind too, if we have more opportunities for individuals like that, we're able to build a more robust, talented workforce and talent pipeline as well. So that's very exciting. I'm excited about the work that this group is doing, because I know that there's a lot of other creative solutions too that are being discussed, but we're not going to give it all away here, because what we want.
Come join the team.
Yes. So Eileen, what can we do next, and how can somebody get involved?
So there is definitely room at the table. Our next meeting is in a couple weeks. So I can't remember the date.
May 21st.
Okay, thank you for covering me.
I got you.
Yeah, thank you. There is definitely room at the table for more people. Specifically, I know we could use some more employers. I think probably people from any walk of life who are really interested in getting involved in moving this initiative forward. Just to give an example of one of the groups that anyone could participate in, we have an advocacy and education work group. It doesn't take any special skills to be part of that. You just want to be part of the team to move the initiative forward. We do have the zoning work group. That's largely folks who are working on zoning in their community. So not everybody fits that category, but there is room at the table for anyone who wants to join in. The easiest way to get the information, I would say, would be to get in contact with me. You can do that through our website. If you Google Community Catalysts, which is plural, Community Catalyst Michigan, there is one in California, Community Catalyst Michigan. And then when you have the opportunity to send an email, it comes right to me. And just let me know that you'd like to get information about the Housing Catalyst Initiative and the upcoming meeting, and I will get that right to you.
Perfect. We'll get your email and then that link to your website, and we'll include it in the show notes too.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, tell us a little bit about this shirt that you're wearing.
Oh, right. I'm repping Senior Survivor today.
That's right.
Yeah. So we found out, in January, that we had been selected to be the recipient of this year's Howell High School Senior Survivor Fundraising Initiative. And I had gone to the high school and was interviewed by a team of teachers and students, and found out 2 days later that we were selected to be the recipient. And having my own kids go to Howell High School, I was familiar with it. But for folks who aren't, it's a fundraising initiative modeled after the TV show Survivor. The senior survivors for this year are actually living at the high school as we speak. They go to class during the day, and then they participate in different challenges like they do on the Survivor show. They're not jumping into bodies of water or anything like that, but if you want to watch it, there is a YouTube channel. So Howell Senior Survivor 2024, and you can watch kind of the outtakes of what happens each day. But the kids fundraise going into this, and actually through the week then, they're fundraising, selling baked goods during the school day to their fellow students, all kinds of things. Last year, they raised $191,000.
Jeez.
And so we are going to be the recipient of this year's fundraising. I'm actually going to go to the assembly on Friday where the survivor is announced, the winner, and then we'll find out the amount of money that was raised this year. And we're so grateful, so blown away to be the recipient of this. And actually, we committed to the house schools so that we would use the funds to help to advance housing for youth specifically. And so we have a housing initiative that we are on the very beginning of launching. We have a lot of approvals that we have to go through, but we're calling it Bethel Cottages. So they're not going to be quite tiny homes. They're going to be a little bit bigger than that. But homes with a smaller square footage that a young person just starting out could afford, a young family, even seniors who want to downsize, this would be a perfect opportunity for them. And so this is going to be kind of the lead donation to get that project started. So we're super, super excited about that too. Yeah.
Very exciting. It's such great stuff. So we can't wait to hear who the survivor is and what that donation amount is as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And we look forward to all of the good things to come.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you, ladies, for allowing me to be here.
Awesome. Well, we hope you'll tune in next time on the Howell Business Beat. Today's episode has been brought to you by our generous sponsors, MS Ultrasonic and Meijer. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of the Howell Business Beat.